go so. Walk round, district or town, we go so. Westmoreland, go so. Hanover, go so. Wave your hand, in the air, and go so. Walk around, in the town, and go so. Markgolding, go so. Dayton, go so. Go so, go so. Every nurse and doctor just hold on tight. Markgolding, now go so.
Good day, everybody. Now I'm going to bring you an next portion of the conference that went on the 11th of September. This is a conference that was held after the other side of one. But this time we're going to hear from Mr. Golding, Anthony Hilton, and Dayton Campbell there. All right. But this time now they're going to, it will be a question and answer session. Yes, call it that. And Nationwide will be the one who's asking some of the questions. We're going to hear from other journalists asking questions also from different radio stations. So guys, just stay tuned and just listen up, and you're gonna hear a lot of what answers and a lot of questions that's going on. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Party that the legal team that has been engaged by our candidate is putting together their documents, and for further information on that they will speak at a later date. And so we'll leave it at that, and I will now open the floor to get any questions that may exist. Who's monitoring this? Is it Nationwide or Riva? What is the appropriate name?
Siobhan Campbell, still Nationwide News. My question is to Mr. Golding. Based on the concerns raised, are you casting doubt on the legitimacy of the outcome of the 2025 general elections? And are you concerned that such doubts would raise speculation in Jamaican people and cast a shadow on Jamaica's electoral process?
I'm concerned about the widespread reports that we have received of voter suppression strategies that were employed, in particular to dissuade our supporters and in some instances our workers from voting, and in the case of workers from turning up in some instances for the elections. I'm not seeking to in any way suggest that we are not accepting that the government that has been elected will be duly constituted. I don't want to go down that road. I don't think that's a wise road for Jamaica. But I also think it's important that we don't sweep things under the carpet, which have become and which were in this election a significant factor at play. And the use of financial resources to suppress votes, based on what we have heard, these are now indirect reports. That's why we're going to go through a process of going into the field to hear from people directly what they experienced and what they saw. But based on the reports that we've received, this is a matter which really needs to be confronted by Jamaica's democracy, and certainly by our party going forward as to how we can try to respond to these types of tactics, which have become a central part of how our opponent operates in trying to secure power for themselves.
Let me just comment a little more on what the party just said, which is that in Guyana, recently there was a general election in Guyana on September 1. I think we're all aware of that. Coming out of that election, the EU delegation, the European Union delegation, has issued a report. And when I read the report, a lot of what they commented on and expressed concern about were actually at play, certainly complained of widely in the Jamaican situation. And that tells you that there are the question of the democratic process being legitimized is also a question of the various activities and the concerns and the issues that are raised that will affect the quality of the democracy. And I think that's a lot of the concerns that are being raised here and need to be pursued is around not just the specific legal aspects, but about some of the concerns and gaps that may have opened up in our electoral system that needs to be addressed.
Morning, Desmond Richards here, Rebel Radio. Mr. President, have you identified reasons why the party lost? And secondly, what are your concerns about the low voter turnout? And I would like to hear if the party has plans to encourage voters to hold their votes.
I would say that there's something perplexing about the voter turnout statistics, based on the fact that during the campaign, right through to the end of the campaign, the energy and enthusiasm on the ground was palpable, significant, and suggested that there would have been a stronger turnout. As indeed, the polls, right up to the last poll, which was published on the Sunday before the election, indicated that, based on the expressions of persons polled, they were expecting a significantly higher turnout. What happened on the day needs to be examined carefully. I think it was a combination of factors at play. I think that there were persons who didn't vote because the lines were long and slow, often in the hot sun, sometimes in the rain, and they got fed up and left. I think that the financial inducements of which I speak or have spoken were a major factor as well in dissuading some people from voting. In terms of why we didn't win the election, we lost it narrowly. If we had 4 more seats, we would form government today. And when we look at the seats that we have in mind, we lost all of those by less than 500 votes. And in all of those, some of the issues which I raised were prominent factors at play. So obviously, I don't want to prejudge what the appraisal committee will say based on their investigations. But as I said, the low voter turnout is a bit of a mystery as to why that transpired, given what we know and what we saw and what we felt during the campaign. I would say one other thing, which is that the voters list itself has not been cleansed comprehensively for over a decade. I can't even remember when the last proper re-verification. Early 2000. So it's probably 2 decades now since that was done. And given the nature of our population, how people move around, move to other parts of Jamaica to seek work, and that sort of thing, and the people who die, and there's no automatic removal of voters on there. The number on the voters list from which the percentage turnout is derived is a questionable number. And so the voter turnout statistic itself is necessarily understated. The degree of understatement is what we don't know.
And if I may add to that, the People's National Party polled an additional 97,000 votes over the 2020 elections. The Jamaica Labour Party polled 5,000 more over that time. And as has been said, if you look at some of our areas, there was significant suppression that took place in some of our areas by a person inducing individuals in there not to go to vote. And with the long lines that were present at the polling station, there is a question for the ECJ to answer. Because if we had a turnout of only 39% and we had such long lines with such delays, one shudder to think what would have happened if the turnout had been 50%. Because significant delays took place on the day. I was on the phone from early with the director trying to resolve some of the issues. And you did have persons in those lines that turned away. So we lost 4 constituencies by less than 500 votes. Each of those constituencies have over 100 polling stations. It's just 5 persons in each of those that got frustrated and left that would have made that difference. And so it is a significant thing. And I think we have to resolve how we do this thing. I was third in line at my polling station and didn't vote until I was there before 7. Didn't vote until about 10 minutes to 8 before I completed the exercise. That's just not acceptable in my opinion. So there was a decision that was taken that persons that showed up without ID should have been placed in a separate line and that you should have started the process from outside with an additional agent. That did not obtain in all constituencies. And so you had, in some cases, what appeared to be a deliberate attempt for persons to turn up without the IDs to deliberately slow down the process. And so there is a need for a proper review of the process and for us to ensure that the elections are indeed free and fair and that people can express their rights.
And I'll just add that if you anticipated a larger turnout, which the poll suggested we may have had, then the planning, it seems to me, was inadequate. The planning by the EOJ must have been inadequate because in the event, only 39% or so turned up, and we had such
voted, not turned up.
Well, voted.
Yeah.
Actually voted. And we had such problems. So, and low voter turnout. So I think the planning has to be questioned and perhaps an audit is appropriate at this time as well.
Team are at CVM TV. We've seen at rallies there are crowds and a lot of support. Even with the big gains, how do you plan to keep the base energized after the back-to-back defeats, Mr. President, KNP President?
Well, after a campaign ends, there's a process of reflection, there's a process of analysis, there's a process of reconnection with our base and our supporters. And there's also, I think there are some reforms internally that we need to pursue as well to strengthen our overall organization. So the way in which we plan to handle the matter would be through a period of careful analysis of what took place and a recognition of where there are weaknesses that need to be strengthened and the deliberate pursuit of changes that will strengthen those weaknesses. So, one doesn't energize the base from the start of a 5-year term of government. Energizing the base comes from the kind of process involved in campaigning. But what we need to ensure is that we stay in touch with our base, that we strengthen our constituents in divisional organizations so that when the time comes, we're able to deliver an effective result. And we are starting now from a much stronger position than we have enjoyed over the previous 5 years. With just 14 in Parliament before, it was much more difficult. Only 14 MPs out of 63 were PNP MPs. Only 14 out of 63 PNP MPs got state resources through the Constituency Development Fund to help to do the work that they have to do. So it's moving from a very limited base in Parliament is difficult, and it required extraordinary effort to take us where we are now. With 28 seats to their 35, I mean, the situation is much more balanced, and that will enable us to build on that to be even more effective next time around.
So people, so you hear everything that's going on, right? So please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.